All right. Good. Okay, so we'll do this again. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Watts, and I serve as the community engagement coordinator here at Benton Museum. I'm also a native and a resident of this neighborhood, so really excited to be hosting this here. In my neck of the woods, I really appreciate y'all coming and packing this space out. For anyone that does not know the history of Benton Museum, this is the 18th century home of James Logan, who served in many capacities in the city of Philadelphia, from the mayor at one point, but also he was an enslaver. So this is a really important that we're hosting these civic events here because a lot of laws were drafted, discussed, made here on this property, and we're doing a lot of work that the Logan family participated in through these sessions. So I want to thank the team for really bringing this together. Eileen, who has been a history hunter guide here for many years, thank you for bringing this event here with us. This is the second installation of The Life of Democracy, so it's a full series. We packed this space out tonight. I hope to see y'all again in May and June. I'm not going to talk too much, but I do want you all to just pay attention to two postcards that we have in your seat. The first, the Greetings from Stenton postcard, is a list of all of our free second Saturday programming. Bring your family and friends. We're doing tours and different activities each month. I'm really excited about birding. A black birding group is coming. They're going to lead in some birding workshops. It's a really good time. You'll be amazed at the type of birds that we have in this neighborhood. It's not just pigeons, y'all. We saw some gorgeous birds last time, so I'm really excited about that. And also, April 26th, we're really excited about our third annual Dinah Day. Dinah is a woman that was formerly enslaved here at Stenton, and we recently reimagined a memorial to her, which you can take a quick look at before you head out today. And so we hope you come out and join us. Juneteenth is the national thing, but we wanted to have something for our nice town, Logan and Germantown neighbors, and that's to celebrate the liberation of Dinah, who received her freedom April 15, 1776. So we're close to her liberation date, and so we want to celebrate her, and we hope you all come out. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic. Thank y'all so much.
Stephanie, thanks for that wonderful introduction and for making this fabulous space available to us. Thanks to all of you for coming out. I'm thrilled to see so many people. And I also, of course, want to thank Neighborhood Networks for sponsoring this event. And a special shout out to Rose Johnson, who is the brainchild behind the whole Life of Democracy series and has done the work to make these things happen. Let's go ahead to the first slide here. This is what we're talking about tonight. So we're talking about on the ballot, Philadelphia courts and criminal justice. I'm going to talk a little bit about elections and the ballot that you guys have here in Pennsylvania and specifically Philadelphia. We were hoping to have Keisha Hudson from the Defenders Association of Philadelphia come tonight. Unfortunately, there was a death in her family and she's unable to make it. So we had a little bit of substitute programming in that place. And then I'm pleased to welcome John Thompson from the Abolitionist Law Center. So you have the next slide. Here are regular voters, even occasionally. Maybe can become voters in the future. So many of you may know this already, but if you don't, or even if you do, it's a refresher. We have 2 elections every year in Pennsylvania. We have federal elections in even years, and in odd years, we have either state and or local elections. So this is 2025, an odd year, and we have just local elections. So in the primary, we're going to select the candidates that will be either our Democratic or Republican candidates in the general election. And we sometimes, as in the case of this upcoming election, have some ballot questions. where we as voters decide yes or no to specific questions. If you're gonna vote in the primary for a candidate, you need to be registered either Democrat or Republican, because you're only going to be able to vote in Pennsylvania for the candidates of your particular party. If you are registered as independent, green, whatever, that's fine. You can still vote on ballot questions if there are some, but you're not going to be able to vote for candidates. In the general election, you can vote for whoever you want. And also every 10 years, the candidates that we vote for in year 0, 10 years later, as judges, 10 years later, we're gonna decide, yeah, they can keep being our judges or they can stop being, or we're gonna get them off the ballot. So that's gonna happen for us this November. So I think we're missing some slides here.
What are we missing?
I'm missing all the slides about this, like, keep going back. I gotta go back one, I think that's. Oh, it's out of order. Okay, I'm sorry. I think just go forward a little bit and then we'll go back. I think I might have put them in the wrong place. One more. Okay, so who can vote in an election? If you're registered 15 days before the next election, you can vote. And in order to be registered, you need to be a citizen of the United States for at least 1 month before the election. You need to be a resident of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, and specifically where you're voting for at least 30 days before the next primary, special, municipal, or general election. You need to be at least 18 years old. Maybe some of the people in the back may or may not think. And then you need to vote at the address where you actually live. It can't be just because you own property or business, that doesn't necessarily make you a resident. Next slide. If you've been convicted of a crime, you can still vote. In most cases, there are some exceptions. One is if you've been convicted of a felony and you're currently confined in a penal institution, so basically you're locked up in whatever kind of facility, then you can't. Or if you've been convicted of a voter fraud within the last 4 years, you still can't. I think there may be a handout here that you can look at if you care about more details of this. If not, you can find it on our website, which we'll talk about later. So here are some key dates. And these dates are also on this lovely Get Ready to Vote handout, which you'll find on your chairs. May 5th is the last day to register, although as it says on the handout, we recommend you do it no later than April 29th, and why not do it today if you need to either update or update any details of your address or your party or whatever. Rose?
I was just gonna throw in, if you do need to register or, not been registered or moved since you last registered, we do have some forms in other rooms. I'm happy to help you with that.
Oh, perfect.
We do have forms.
So you can, one step, do that today. So that's May 5th is the absolute deadline, but it's really better to do it in advance. If you want to vote by mail, do people here like to vote by mail?
No.
Yeah? Some people like to vote by mail, who likes to vote in person? Okay, there's some people who don't have their hands raised, so maybe you're on the fence and just don't want to share. Hopefully, you're still voting, even if you didn't tell us that. So, the mail ballot, again, you have till May 13th to get a mail ballot technically, but a lot of times that's not actually enough time. A lot of ballots get rejected because they do not come in on time. They need to come in to the commissioner's office by 8 p.m. on May 20th. That can come in by US mail, it can come in by a pop-up, and in the last 2 years, we've had this wonderful option in Philadelphia, or the actual election office, where you can go, and if it's before May 13th, you can show up, you can apply for a ballot, you can get the ballot, you can fill the ballot out, and you can return the ballot all in one spot, and that's a fabulous option. So you can do that all before May 20th, or you can just show up at your polling place May 20th. So on the ballot in May 20th, our next election, we have a couple of statewide judges. We have a couple of Philadelphia judges, actually a whole slew of them, although there's just a few different courts. We have the district attorney race, which I imagine many of us are following. People following the district attorney race here. A couple of hands went up. City controller, which I guess has something to do with criminal justice, but it's a little bit more, less direct. And then the local election board, which are the nice people who are greeting you if you show up in person at the polling place. Some of those positions are elected, some are not. And then we have some ballot questions, which I'll talk about more later. And let's go back to the statewide races, which was supposed to be the next slide, but I messed up. So the main thing to get out of this is just whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, there are some people you could vote for. If you're a Republican, you have some choices. If you're a Democrat, you're not. You can only vote for one person in each race. You go to the next slide. If you're, it's so like for the citywide budget, we have a whole bunch of judges for the Court of Common Pleas. There's this long list of names. You can vote for up to 9 of these people. If you're a Democrat, you can't vote for anybody. If you're a Republican, a registered Republican, because nobody is on the ballot. For the citywide elections, again, there's up to 3 people that you can vote for if you're registered Democratic. If you're a registered Republican, again, you gotta wait till the general. We heard a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of information about the DA race. So I'm sure people here, some of you already have their favorite, maybe some of them are still deciding. There's a lot of debates that have been happening, so there's a lot of ways to learn more about that. And there's a city controller race, not much choice there. And then, of course, there's your local board of elections, which is a precinct level thing. So perhaps everybody in this room is voting for different people in the last judge and inspector of elections. You go to the next slide and see what it is. We'll keep going. Hey, go back. Okay, so with the judicial races, there's a lot of candidates there. Sometimes it's hard to get information about who these people are. The Bar Association is a good source to get some information. There's a PA Bar Association, which when I looked a couple of days ago, didn't yet have recommendations up, but they may eventually. And there's the Philadelphia Bar Association, which has both statewide and local recommendations.
And I'd like to make a point, while this is a nonpartisan event, and we don't make recommendations here, if you're interested in learning more about the candidates, go to phillynn.org and look at our recommendations and endorsements, and you'll get a whole list of who we've recommended and endorsed and why.
Another great source. Thank you. All right, so there's ballot questions.
I did. Go ahead, you can do it.
Neighborhood Networks has put together a great handout that you have on your chair about these ballot questions. And we're going to be hearing from John Thompson about the last one. So this over here, they do have the recommendations of which way to vote and then a description of what they mean. And so the first ballot question is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, increased minimum spending on housing and health fund services amendment. The question is, should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to create the office of homeless services omnibus plan?
Yeah, you don't have to read the whole thing, but I'm, just get a sense of it.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. Honestly, I do not feel qualified to say that.
All right.
If anybody else feels qualified to say no, I'm happy to give you the question. What's that?
I got it.
Can I ask you a question? What is the housing trust fund? What is the housing trust fund?
It's a fund that the city set up to spend specifically on new housing for low income folks. So, and that's an expansion of that.
Thank you, Jim. Next question is, should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to provide mandatory annual appropriations to the Housing Trust Fund to include developer payments in lieu of providing affordable housing?
That was for the other slide.
What's that?
That was for the other slide.
Oh, no, that's a fucking question.
Okay, so this one's for you.
The last question, this is, the last question, we're gonna hear a lot from John Thompson, who's an expert on it. I'll just read it. Should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to create the Office of Prison Oversight Office and the Philadelphia Prison Community Oversight Board? So we'll hear more about that exciting question, which is really pretty cool. So just a couple of more quick things.
Move over.
Oh, how was it?
Yes.
The Philadelphia, vote.phila.gov. You have some great barcodes here that are really useful. Vote.phila.gov is an excellent reference, because that's run by our Philadelphia City Commissioners. It will also have the same kind of links that we have in our sheet. It will tell you where your specific voting place is and what your specific ballot looks like. Where the ballot drop-off locations are, where the satellite offices are, so you can see what's near you. And then finally, after the election, you can get results. And I would at this time be introducing Keith Hutt. Keith Hutt, but instead of that, I'm going to introduce James Upsigrove, who's going to talk a little bit about the program.
I learned this afternoon that Keisha is not able to join us. So I went scrambling a little bit and looked around myself, and I'm gonna talk about Philadelphia courts, what I learned in a short look. And Tim's gonna help me too with some slides. Apparently, Philadelphia has what's called the first judicial district, probably because we're down here in Philadelphia, the whole state. There are two main courts. There's a court of common pleas and municipal court. And Sharon just showed you who's gonna be on the ballot for those different courts. And there's a big thing, there's a lot of oversight by Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They have like a president of the court, they have someone who's from the PA courts that's involved even in our municipal courts, just to make sure that they are sort of keeping an eye on things, making sure that they're proceeding. So we covered my feel about that, so it's interesting. For the Court of Common Pleas, that is the bigger of these courts. It has 101 judges, and they have these different sections that function on a regular basis. You may know some of these or recognize them. There's the trial division, both criminal and civil cases. For cases that exceed $12,000, so those are more expensive ones. Family is about divorce and then there's a juvenile branch of the family division, and as you can see, that handles issues of delinquency, dependency, adoptions. It's a really important section, especially because as much you can see in the news about the issue of juvenile centers and how much issue there is about how they're being run and the kids who are there. Then there's the orphans court, very odd name for a place where you take your will, get registered, and your fellow estates. That's just, something from a long time ago. So the municipal court is definitely the smaller of the two courts. They have 27 judges. So as you can see, there's only 3 of those coming up this time. And you can see they have this breakout: criminal, civil, and traffic. Oh yeah, your old friend's traffic court. In 2013, as you can see, there was a Philadelphia traffic court, but it was moved to municipal court instead. Now these cases both, in the civil division, these are for cases with disputes that are issues around money less than $12,000, so this is definitely kind of like the first place to go. If you have a bigger case, you end up in common pleas. And you can, if you have a decision you don't like here, you can appeal for a new hearing. In common pleas. In common pleas, you have a jury. In municipal court, you have an administrative law judge. So some people want a jury, so they can appeal the decision if they're not happy with it. You can go to the next slide, Tim. Oh,
Shit.
that's it. Okay. That's quickly what I found out, and, another thing that is interesting is that I think that if you get through common pleas court and you're not happy with the results, you can appeal it to Superior Court, which is a statewide court. And, so once all over again, who we end up voting for does affect us here in Philly, even for state judges, it all comes back. I've seen this again and again since I've lived here. Do you have any questions? I can take a stab at them, or we can save it to the end. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Terry. I think you're pulling in that great information on short notice. I want to also comment, Jane has been really helpful in organizing these events, and she's part of the Philadelphia Neighborhood Networks. I now want to introduce John Thompson, and I'm say he's an organizer with the Abolition of Law Center, primarily working on and advocating to eliminate death by incarceration, solitary confinement, and the release of all aging and geriatric prisoners. He's the founder and executive director of New Hope Community Services, a grassroots community organization advocating both social and political issues. He's also the co-founder of Urban Inspiration, a community organization that provides resources and mentoring to children and young adults. He has organized political campaigns for candidates in both state and national elections. He has spent 37 years in prison after being convicted at the age of 17 and sentenced to death by incarceration. He now has a degree in paralegal studies and worked as a jailhouse lawyer for over 20 years while incarcerated in state prison. And he currently sits on the Data Safety Monitoring Board of the National Institute of Health and National Institute of Aging. John Thompson will tell us about the proposed prison oversight board and that you're going to vote for as one of the last ballot question on May 20th, and then we'll have some time.
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good. The Prison Oversight Board. The coalition, we have a coalition of organizations that came together back in like 2020 at the height of COVID. Right? And what we did was we decided to look into the prison because we were getting a lot of information coming out of the prisons from people that they were being severely mistreated under the auspice of COVID, right? Stuck in their cells, being abused, physically not being given any clean clothes, not being able to take showers, to their families, make phone calls, food was at a minimum, toilet paper was almost non-existent, sanitary napkins was almost non-existent, right? So we decided to look into it. What we found was just heartbreaking. Next slide, Tim. And back to 2020, right, about the inhumane conditions. So the Adolescents Law Center, one of the things we do at the Adolescents Law Center, that we're a public interest law firm. And we deal with a lot of things in the public, like for instance, solitary confinement, conditions of confinement. We're absolutely want to abolish certain things, right? We would like to abolish the prison system the way it's structured right now. Because it doesn't help anyone, it doesn't change you, it doesn't make you a better person, it doesn't help you when you come back out into society to be a better person, right? So it's simply just warehousing people, right? So at the Adolescents Law Center, when we see something, we react. We actually react. Some of our attorneys were instrumental in the Remick case. I don't know if you know what the Remick case was. The Remick case is the case that was brought against the city about the conditions of the county prisons. And how they were being treated, right? And as a result of that, right now, they have a monitor. The county prisons are under restrictions and they're supposed to improve things, but guess what? They're not improving anything. They're just continuously taking the fine. We go back, we fine them $200,000, $1 million. It's not coming out of their pockets. So they really have no incentive to correct things because it's not affecting their life, right? Next slide, Tim. Well, let me go back to that previous one first. Okay, so when we first started this, we started looking at it from a solitary confinement perspective and a conditions perspective. And what we found was that they were overusing solitary confinement during COVID. Like the whole prison was solitary confinement. Everybody was locked down. When you came in, they automatically threw you on a block with people who they said already had COVID. Even if you didn't have COVID, right? Even if you didn't have COVID, you still went on that unit, right? So of course you're going to catch COVID because everybody there has COVID. So now you're stuck on that block. So then if you go out in population, once they say you know, you're better, you can go out in population. And then you get out in population, it's the same thing. People on the block have COVID. So now they isolate the whole block. So we, unbeknownst to us, I don't know if you know who Helen Ginn was. She was a city council person, and she was actually working on some stuff dealing with the county prison also. So we collaborated with her and came up with a prison oversight to try to see if we can get oversight into the prison. And why is this important? Next slide, Tim. Before I get into that, yeah, well, we can go here first. Why is it needed? There's no oversight right now on the county prison. They have what they call an advisory board. And when we looked into the advisory board for the county prison, what we found was that they had like 7 people who would meet occasionally, right? And just, I mean, they would announce their meetings, like they would send out a memo and say, we're having a meeting on the 22nd, right? And it might be the 20th, right? And then you were expected as a member of that advisory committee to be there. And within there, we actually talked to one of the members who was one of the advisory members, and she said all they did was went in there and just talked. There was never an agenda, never any minutes, anything, right? The commissioner never came, right? They would send a representative and they would just tell them everything's okay, we're trying to improve so and so, and that would be the end of it, right? So there's no oversight in the county prison. So when you don't have any oversight and you already have an environment that's critical, should I say, I'm going to say it's a crisis. When you have a crisis and you don't have anyone looking into it, people do not have an incentive to do anything about it, right? Because most people think that people in the county prison, they're criminals, they should be treated any kind of way, you know, do anything you want to them, we really don't care. That's not the case. They're human beings, no matter what. You're a human being first, and then whatever they put on you after that is after that. You're a human being first. So the county prison has a system where it's like the blue wall. The guards stick together, right? The captains, the lieutenants, the majors, the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, everyone is sticking together. I don't know if you know this also. People have been dying in these prisons. Like they're being taken in there and 2 or 3 days later they're dead, right? I mean, this is just recent stuff. This is not stuff that happened 4 or 5 years ago. These are recent incidents since they started this thing in Kensington, where they're just taking people off the streets, you know, that are addicted to drugs and putting them in prison. But when they're not giving them any medication, anything. So a lot of them, some of them are dying just from withdrawal, right? Next slide, Jim. Oh, okay. The effective elements of the oversight board is independent from the jail. This will be independent from the jail. This oversight board is primarily of community members, right? Transparency and public reporting. The transparency, what is planned is that they will have a website. All the information will be published on there. Their hearings will be published on there. their hearings, when they have the board hearings and stuff, they will be published on there so that people can see what's happening. And this is unprecedented, right? That people want to have access to the prison to go in, regular citizens, right? Who work for the Department of Prison Oversight, or want to be able to go into the prison, talk to prisoners, talk to staff, look around, see what's going on, check medicals, stuff like that. When people come up to them and say, well, I'm a diabetic and I haven't had my medication in 2 days, right? I haven't had my insulin in 2 days, they won't get my insulin. That's something they can take care of. Where if no one's there, the guards would just be like, well, I'm not a doctor. So, well, what could I tell you? The nurse will be around, tell her when she come around. But by the time the nurse gets there, it may be too late. If anybody know about diabetes, your sugar could drop and you go into a coma, a diabetic coma, right? So next slide, Tim. Okay, what will this prison oversight board do? Like I said, increase transparency and oversight over the prison, Philadelphia Department of Prison by establishing an independent civil board. Now, when we talking about an independent board, that means it will be a department within the city, right? But they will be independent from the jail. So their job is going to be to make sure that things are being done right, ran right, and people are being treated like human beings, right? Like supplies, like I just talked about, like toilet paper, people that even have toilet paper. Like, what are you spending all this money on? The budget for this is in the millions, like $300 and something million for their budget. And you can't provide toilet paper for people, right? So those are just some of the things. These are some of the things that we brought up when we spoke in front of city council was the deadly and dangerous condition, right? That they had 60 deaths in jail since like 2021, right?
Most of the nation.
Right, most in the nation, that's correct, that's the most in the nation. Right? So it's something that's being done and something that's not being done. Right? Yes.
So based on the ballot question, the board that's created, would they be able to go in and look at anything that they wanted to, or is it specific areas that, topics that they would have oversight over?
Right now, we're working on the second piece of the legislation, which would be the operational piece of the legislation. And those are some of the things that we're additionally fighting for. You gotta remember now, we're at the table now with the mayor's office, the commissioners, city controller, everybody's at this, the city solicitor, should I say, is at this table. And of course, we know the commission don't want it. He already stated that it's not needed, we don't want it, blah, 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 right? But he is just trying to impede the way of making this happen, but that's not gonna happen. All right, so there's been 63 deaths since 2020. Many of them cases could have been prevented, right? Amanda Callahan, I don't know if you know, she's the one who went in from the drug raid and the next day she was dead, right? And in fact, people were on the door, banging and screaming and kicking on the doors for like 2 hours, saying that somebody needs medical attention, and nobody would come. Right? There's supposed to be a guard on the unit at all times, right? So wherever that guard was, he or she was not on the unit, right? Frank San Lorenzo, right? He died from diabetes, right? We just spoke about not being able to get his insulin. If you can't get your insulin, you can die, right? But do they care? But the most egregious part about this is that you probably don't even hear about these deaths. Right. You don't even hear about it because nobody says anything. Or somebody died hard, just push that under the rug, right? And then maybe a week or two later, you'll see a little article in the paper that so-and-so died in county prison. That's what you'll see. 38-year-old father who died on the floor in the cold, right? In the filthy water. That's hours of himself and other people calling for help. I know from experience that people will get on that door, kick them doors, bang on them doors, for hours trying to get help, and nobody will come. Right?
What I was just upset that so he was in there and he died because he had a traffic debt.
Right, he was arrested for traffic. Right, he died in prison. Right. Now, when we talk about, let's talk about mental health, right? County prisons are the mental health asylums of today. That is where they put mental health patients at now. That's where they put them at. They put them in prison. If they have an episode out here, they take them and they lock them up and they put them in prison. Now, while he's in prison, most people with mental illnesses, you know, they can't really defend themselves. Right? They can't really defend themselves. Let's just be real, they can't. So you have mental illnesses running rapidly. Over 40% of the people in county prison, they say, have some form of mental illness. Right? So I would think that you would have treatment, you know, some psychologists, some psychiatrists, and programs to help them, right, while they're there. Right? And a lot of these people are in prison for the smallest little stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, really the smallest little things that nobody should be locked in a cage for, but they're there because they're mentally ill. And when the cop come, they may act out or something like that, and now they arrest them, right? So that's why they're in prison. Solitary and out of cell time, right? Like I said before, when we started out about solitary confinement, right? Because I don't know if any of you know what solitary confinement is. Solitary confinement is an area in the prison where they seclude you from everyone else, right? And you stay back there with nothing, right? You really have nothing back there. It's even worse in the county prisons because you don't have nothing already, right? Except that little teeny small meal they give you, twice a day. And now they say they give out bag lunches, so you get a bologna sandwich or something, and some cheese or something like that, right? And that's what you have when you're in the hole. Well, they put so many people in the hole in the county prison because they use it as another place to store people at, right? Because when the prison was vastly overcrowded, where else they gonna put you? They're gonna put you in the hole. So for any little thing, you will go to the hole. And most people may think that people in the hole because they stabbed somebody or they was fighting. That's not true. The majority of people are in the hole for what? Disobeying an order. The guard can tell you something, you can say no, and they'll take you to the hole. Just that simple. It's just that simple right there, and you don't have any recourse, right? And you'll just be in the hole. But in the county, you're only supposed to stay in the hole for a maximum of like 15 days, right? But they keep them there for months and months and months. Because why? Nobody's watching. They have no one to answer to, right? Okay, so medical neglect. They have medical neglect, and in June 2024, 465 backlog appointments for medically urgent things. 358 of them were off-site specialist care. When something is wrong with you, you have to go out and see a specialist about, right? Maybe it's your heart, maybe it's your lungs, or something like that. Maybe it's your eye, but you have to go out for specialist service. Well, that's the backlog, right? The deaths and the injuries have been mentioned elsewhere. We didn't even get into the physical assaults that occur in county prison, from the stronger prisoners to the weaker prisoners, from the gangs to the other prisoners, right? No one's being protected. No one is being protected, right? So if you're a young guy, you shoplift or something, they put you in the county prison, right? You're just there, right? And if the gangs decide that they want to beat up on you or take what little you might have, that's what they're going to do. The guard's not going to stop them, right? So it's a very unsafe environment. Okay. Sanitation, the sanitation in there, I don't know. I doubt if anybody in this room has probably been in a county prison. It's extremely nasty. It's extremely dirty. We talk about leaking ceilings, windows that's missing windows with plastic up on them, right? Toilets that overflow when your neighbor uses the toilet and flush it, they come up in your cell and flow all over the floor. And you literally have to stay in there with that. But they're not coming to give you nothing to clean it up. Just not. That's just how they are. They're just not coming. So you have to deal with that until you can find a way to get it up and get it clean. And then if he goes to the bathroom again and flush the toilet, it's right back. And if you do the same thing, it goes to his cell. So the whole system is messed up. All right. So the question on the ballot will be, should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to provide for the creation of an independent Philadelphia Prison Community Oversight Board and Office of Prison Oversight? Yes. Right. And to further authorize City Council to determine the composition, powers, and duties of what we're doing now, right? Next slide, Tom.
We're there.
Well, I think you missed something. I gave you some more, but that's all right, I get the stuff, but I put that in my head anyway, it's cool. One thing I wanted to say was the board. The oversight board will be made up of 9 people, of 9 regular citizens. 4 of them will be appointed by the mayor's office, right? And 4 of them will be appointed by city council. And 1 by the city controller, right? That's how they're gonna make up the 9. They were bickering about, oh, y'all got 5 picks, we got 4 picks. They were bickering back and forth, so that was the compromise, right? And then what they'll do is, what will happen is, we're going to submit names and other people are going to apply, just regular citizens are going to apply to sit on this board. And then the people who pick, which will be city council, or will be determining who they choose to be on the board. And then they will choose an executive director. The executive director will be the person that I say will be the most important person. Because the executive director is going to be the one who is going to direct the investigators on, this, and this. They'll bring the information back to him, and then he brings it back to the board, right? And then the board makes their recommendations and say what needs to be done, right? Not saying, see, when we first started, let me go back to this. When we first started, we wanted to have so many teeth, right? Like a shark. We wanted this thing to be like a shark, right? And then slowly but surely they chipped away with the union contract, contractual issues and HIPAA and all those things to try to impede. So what the best we could come up with was that if anything is going wrong in there, if anybody's being mistreated, that they will have an obligation to report that to the district attorney general. Right? And that is the one thing that that's a red line for us. We will not give that up, right? Because that's important that not only that the public know, but that the law knows that the law is being broken, right? Because if you're in there abusing someone, abusing your power, then somebody needs to step in. Right? And once the board is set and then the office opens up, it will be a legitimate office in City Hall that will have an office with staff and everything else, right? And if you want to apply for any of those jobs, I say please do, right? Right now, they're trying to work out whether or not the board members will be compensated. The executive director, yes, he will be compensated. They're trying to work out whether or not the board members will be compensated. We want them to be compensated. They're regular community people, right? And another thing that we were able to do was to get them to agree that at least one person on that board has to be a formerly incarcerated person, right? Because they have insight on what goes on in those prisons. Any questions? Go.
So with the oversight board, would that if that's in effect, would the advisory board just disappear?
Yes, it's going to be it's going to take it away. The advisory board is going to be taken away. They work nothing. They never meet. They never do anything. Yeah. So they can just do what they've been doing, nothing.
And did the advisory board did they have like office space and staff and
no, they
like
didn't. They didn't. Before the advisory board, it was the board of inspectors or something like that. And then they changed it to the advisory board. They didn't have office space. They were just people who the mayor appointed to be on this advisory board. Right. I don't know. They didn't get paid. They didn't get paid. I guess they got a stipend for their travel, meals, and stuff like that. Right. But it wasn't a big salary or anything like that.
So let's say this gets passed. November 20th, so May 20th comes by, everybody goes out and votes, and normally the ballot questions, they win. They usually win, unless it's something really egregious. So let's say we get this over the goal line and this is passed. What's the timeline for this thing now?
Well, the timeline is that it's right on there that it's supposed to start operating within like 90 days. However, like I said, the powers and duties, we're working on that right now. Right. Once this passed, then the second part of the legislation will come along. So I'm going to say in no more than 9 months, right? Because we're pushing this hard for this to be done now. But we have opposition from the commissioner's office and the people around the commissioner's office, right? But I wanna make one thing perfectly clear, that this is not just about prisoners, this is about staff too, this is about human beings. This is gonna benefit the good staff there who do their job every day, who come to work and do their job every day. It's gonna benefit them also, right? It's the bad ones who bring narcotics in, who bring other stuff in, who do all the beating on other prisoners and neglect them, you know, and all that stuff. Those are the ones who it's going to affect. Because now the activities won't be allowed. Yes,
When it comes to the chain of communication, how would that play about? Let's say there's some type of mistreatment going on and one wanted to, you know, blow the whistle, so to speak. How would that go about?
well, if it's written on the grievance, then they would have the grievance, then the investigators would have the grievance, right? And they would go and talk to that person and find out what's going on, right? And then they would take the information back to the executive director, right? And we talking about, when we talking about the office, when you take it back to the office, if it's an immediate, something that needs to be done immediately, then you have to address it immediately. You can't wait to have a board member. The executive director have to make a call. He's gonna have all the power.
The oversight board gonna act as an outside entity to handle grievances?
I go last.
Well, no, they're not gonna handle grievance per se. They're going to investigate grievance to make sure that they are adjudicated properly.
Every grievances or grievances?
Whatever grievance, well, if if somebody writes a grievance and say, I didn't get my potato chips inside my commissary bag, of course they're not gonna investigate that, right? But if somebody said, I had a foot infection and it's getting bad, it's turning colors, and they won't take me to medical, they won't do anything about it, of course they will address that, right? That's how it will be done. Yes. Who?
So,
Sir.
So I have a comment and a question, just to touch on what you were saying about solitary confinement for those of y'all who are interested. At any given day, the United States has about 2 million people incarcerated, but about 100,000 of those people are in solitary confinement. And probably more because people in medical confinement are considered solitary confinement, even though they are subject to the same regulations and policies as those who are in solitary confinement. That was my comment real quick. But my question is, first of all, I appreciate you for, I know you've been leading the way on this oversight thing, very important. Appreciate it. Yes. What about the board members who are selected by our opposition? Is there a process? Is there a process in place, or will there be a process in place to evaluate their performance and potentially replace them? Or is the appointment of these board members considered like Supreme Court? It's like,
No, first and foremost, they can only serve 2 terms. They're only serve on the board for 2 terms.
and how long are the term?
The terms are 4 years. They'll sit on there. The first one will be 4 years, and then it's 2 years after that.
Okay.
Right? So they can only stay on there for those 2. That's cut and dry. The second part of your question is, yes, there's a way to remove them. If they're written up, right, for whatever reason, then they will be heard by the rest of the board outside of them to get them a decision. Once that decision is made by the board, then the executive director will dismiss that person. Right? Because we're talking about, these are going to be city jobs, so to speak, right? You're going to actually work for the city, but you're going to be an investigator for the prison oversight board.
I've been in the county jail, by the way, and I've been upstate. I promise you, county prisons are far more violent.
Yes.
And this is far more extreme than state prison.
Yes.
Who would be the point person inside of the prison to handle the grievance? How would it get outside to the powers that be to come investigate it?
Well, if what happens is what we are proposing to do, right, is that the grievances, when people write a grievance, they normally put them in a box, right? You put your grievance in a box. And then you normally have one designated person in the institution that comes around and collect those grievances. Well, one of the investigators would have access to those same grievances and be able to read them. And see the person's name, where they live at, and what their complaint is, and go through the grievances like that.
Is there a way for us to support the work that y'all are doing and kind of amplify, the work that you're doing outside of just the election?
Yes, there is. I'm glad you brought that up. We, and currently there are a few ways. One way is to spread the word to your neighbors, right? I bought some information, just a fact sheet here today. I bought a fact sheet, here to talk to your neighbors about it and let them know, the situation. And if they're interested, if anybody's interested in being on the board, they can contact me at my email, because we're compiling the list now to submit to city council. Not just for, investigators, but for the executive director also. Which I must say, it's going to be a hefty salary, because believe me, it's going to be a hefty salary, right? So I would suggest that some people apply for that, right?
I wanted to ask about the budget. Where did the budget come from? And the reason I'm asking is because I know the Police Oversight Committee, a lot of their funding comes from the police union. That's a real conflict of interest. The police union is not going to be fighting the Police Oversight Board. So I wanted to make sure that the same thing didn't happen here.
Well, we can trust them, they're the police.
Well, one of the things that's inside the actual legislation, right, is that the money is going to come from the county prison, but it's earmarked at like 0.025%, right, of their annual budget, which was about a little over like $2 million, something like that, somewhere around there for their operating budget. So they have the money is already earmarked for that, right? So it's when it comes out of the Department of Corrections, county prison's budget, it automatically comes out every year, whether they like it or not. Yes.
So, and this might be something that's getting worked out in the enabling legislation. But so once the oversight board does an investigation and knows there are things that need to be changed, how much power do they have to force a change? Is it just bringing things to light and then we have to wait for city council or somebody else to do something?
Well, I'm going to say that the power is with the community. The power is with the people, right? That's where the power really lie at. Like their job is going to make sure it's transparent, to make sure you know what's going on and how your tax dollars are being abused in there, right? That's where the power is going to come from. And unless it's a crime or a criminal act or something, someone is being abused, beat on, or something like that, or starved, things like that. Those things have to go to legal authority, right? And they will be under actual obligation to report that stuff, right? And then once it's reported, if you report something to the Attorney General's office, and it's Philadelphia, oh, they coming. Well, they definitely coming.
This is more a comment. First, I really appreciate what you have to say. It's really, really, I like the way you say it too. Solitary, I don't know how Pennsylvania's been able to get away with putting people in solitary for these long periods of time, when the United Nations said that anything over 15 days is torture. It's like, that's known globally, like that's torture, that's not discipline. I think if in terms of like things that we can do besides supporting this work, is really get on top of all the stuff that's going on and write letters to the editor and just get the word out in general.
You had a question, sir?
Yeah, how many times did the oversight board visit the prisons?
They'll be in there every day. That's going to be their job.
Visit the prisons, not that going to visit the prison itself.
You mean
Go around to the prisons.
the investigators or the board
The
members?
board members.
The board members can they can go in anytime they want, but I doubt that they go in as much as the investigators, because they are the ones who are tasked with going to work. Right? It'll be the board members who will be disseminating the information and stuff like that and making recommendations and finding out, once they find out from the investigator. I think that, one of the, another thing that we're trying to push for is, well, we wanted golden key access, right? But you're not gonna get that, right? So one of the things that we're actually fighting for right now is the commissioner is saying, well, if y'all wanna come into prison, we need to have 48 hours notice, right? And it was just a joke. I mean, it was literally a joke. It had to be a joke, right? Right? He backed off of it, but that was his initial thought. Right?
So the boards cannot come in when they
No,
want.
no, the board can come in, the board can go in when they want to, but they have to go in with an investigator, as an investigator. Right, because they're a member of the board. They can go into prison, right? They don't have to do like you and I would have to wait and go in with city council or somebody, right? Or state representative to go in. The board will be allowed to go into the prisons when they want to. The investigators will be allowed to go into prisons when they want to.
Yeah, the investigators are separate from the board. There are,
Well, let's put it this way, they work for the board, almost like they work for the board.
right, but the
They're all
board you're
one unit.
describing, the 4, 4, and 1 that you're
That's-
describing, that's the board.
That's the oversight
Are the
board.
investigators part of that, or are the investigators separate individuals?
They are separate individuals.
Okay.
Yes,
That was just a board member. Even though they're separate, they don't have to have the same, idea.
ability to go right.
And a board member have to make sure that the investigator is doing his or her job. Sometimes they might be paid, sometimes they're different.
Right, that's true. They
And
may.
board members have the access to walk in any day, anytime, not to be asked to pay more 3 or 4 days in front. That's the difference with you.
I'm going to, going back to the young lady's question about how can you sit. We're also having canvases and stuff like that where we're going to be in like high traffic areas, just passing out literature concerning the oversight board, asking people to support the oversight board. So if anybody is interested, like I said, I'll leave my contact information and you get it from Jane and get in touch with me and I'll certainly put you on the list. If we get ready to gear up, as soon as we wait for this weather to break a little bit more, then we out.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
yes.
right. I was just wondering, we're trying to get young people more engaged. What are some resources that kids our age should be checking out?
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, what are some resources that kids our age should be checking out to become informed about these things as we get ready to be voting for the first time?
This is a good start. This right here is a wonderful start right here, right? But if you want more information about, are you talking about just voting in general, the
Yeah.
process?
Resources to give to kids.
PhillyNN.org.
So,
That's right.
or,
Yeah,
sorry, when we're done, we can exchange information if you want. I'm a criminal justice organizer, Pennsylvania Worker Plans Party. I'm also assistant to the executive director at Advocates also. So I can make sure that you get all the information that you need for that. Okay?
That would be great, thank you.
Great question, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one more question. The executive, the head of this board, what's to prevent? You say the mayor, the city council, and then the city controller, right?
yes.
And does the board elect the executive, or does the mayor?
Well, the city council has to approve.
Has
They're
to
gonna
approve,
submit
oh,
3
okay,
names.
okay,
They're gonna
okay.
submit 3 names. They'll do 3 interviews with people and they'll figure out of those 3, which one they're gonna choose to be the
The
executive.
executive, okay.
Anybody can apply for it. Yes. Anybody can apply.
Okay.
I would tell people to apply, right? And the good thing about it is they removed all the restrictions for you having this kind of degree or that kind of degree and stuff like that. But you do have to have some skills, like base building skills and stuff like that. You have to have those skills.
So the executive director is different from the board. It's not part of the board.
Well, no, he's not part of the board. He runs the
Right,
whole
okay,
operation, so
sure,
to speak.
right.
He or she, right?
Great.
So informative.
Is May the fourth? May the sixth? Okay, our next event is May the sixth, and it'll be inside the Philadelphia school system. We'll be.
But in this location.
Yes, sorry. The topic is inside the school system, but the place will be right here again. We'll, again, look to have two speakers, and we'll be talking about school funding. And also, some of the things the school board is doing well, some of the things they need to be doing better. And